What I discovered over that 2-day project was something more like mixed media, where we're using 2D, 3D painting, models from Meshy, generative AI, but also regular modeling techniques as well. So I'd like to go right into it, but first I think it'd be better to sort of take a quick example. We'll use this little disk cartridge from the computer console here to just kind of show the tools. Here it is up close. So it's a secondary element, but it's still a story element. And so as we show the tools, I'll be doing a little bit of look dev just to put it in the world with the rest of our stuff. And so let's take a look and see how we do that. Here are the models that came from Meshy with a really simple disk container prompt, and you can see the ones that I picked at the top. I like some of the angles in there. I see there's going to be some room for me to do some customization later. So for a simple object like this, it's going to work perfectly. So I'll download this model, and then I'll just load it up into a 3D application. So here I'm using an iPad app called Feather3D, but you could do this type of workflow in Maya or Blender or anywhere you like. And then basically what's happening is that I'm importing a model, and then I'm drawing over top of it. So I'm kind of doing the texturing and the modeling at the same time in one process. It's very simple, and the output is just a simple 3D sketch that you could share with any 3D artist that they could use to work on from there. And yeah, so I chose Feather for its real-time abilities, but you could do that anywhere. And so this is kind of a look at the overall process. We start with a base model from Meshy, and then we're just going to do that first pass of simple look dev customization to set it in our world so that it looks like it's going to tell our sort of retro futuristic story. And so what I call this is a save point. So, you know, it sits in our world, it feels good, but it's just kind of waiting there to sort of be designed more deeply later on. For now, it's going to be fine. So with this kind of in mind, let's take a look and see how we would apply generative AI at a bigger scale to do some more interesting things. So if you're not familiar with kitbashing, the idea is that you would take a bunch of model kit pieces from different models and put them all back together to make something new. And this is the model room at ILM from many years ago, and they're making the Millennium Falcon there in the front. And if we look at the back, you can see that they've got model kits and model parts everywhere. And on this shelf, we basically have the old school version of what would be generative AI. So they're using themed mechanical parts from tank and car model kits and putting them back together to make something new. It's a tried and true production technique that's been used for decades. So if we reimagine that for today, we get something like this, where everyone can have their own personal library of parts, parts that are themed, custom sets, things that can be shared with other teams and other artists. And from a builder and creative's perspective, it's hard to underestimate or overstate how much value that can bring. It really is like an infinite model kit of spare parts. And just like the old days, it really depends on what we're going to do with those things. So we're going to use a workflow like this where we're kitbashing a bunch of models out of Meshy, but then we're going to put them back together in a very different way. So we're going to add structural elements, we're going to add connection pieces, and by working this way, you can block out a lot of things very quickly. If we decide, you know, this blaster would look neat with a missile on top, it takes minutes to do a round loop with Meshy, generate some options, bring something back in, color over top of it so it fits the same look dev, and now all of a sudden we've got something that looks like it was made as one piece. So here's another set of technical gadgets, and you can see this is part of the Android head that I used in the end. Here's another set of parts where it's cable attachments inspired by deep sea diving. So the sky is really the limit with the type of parts you can make and the speed of creating these sets as well. I've found that a generic prompt like this is all you really need to just keep generating and seeing a large variety of models that can all get plopped into one giant set, and you can look through them later to see if there's value there or not. So here's a neck piece, a set of 50 neck pieces, and you can see that the one I picked here, it's got some nice angles. I like the look of it. It also has holes in it, but it really doesn't matter because we're going to be taking this stuff and making something new. So if we're looking here at the Android head, you can see the parts of the models that I liked, right? The goggles on top and the ear bits are interesting, but they don't fit what I want, so I'm just not going to use them, and that's it. What I like about this model is that really closed face opening, the kind of machine-like motocross helmet bottom, and the fact that I can turn it into a hat, which is something that I wanted to do for the design, and the brim is going to reinforce that closed feeling, almost looking like a lens hood cover over all of the camera equipment that's going to be in the head. So you can see we're taking something that starts off looking like sort of a military sci-fi guy and going in a very different direction. And here's that neck piece we looked at. So again, it's the same stuff. I'm opening up the front, I'm adding those little zipper details, all these little elements to take it from where it was to where I want it to be. And I'm doing those edits very simply. I'm doing it on the fly, the way I normally would as I'm working. So there's nothing special there. And when I'm talking about that stuff, we're really talking about the type of model operations that physical and digital modelers have been doing for decades. So kitbashing is part of the process, but it really goes hand in hand with model construction. And if you're making models, what you're really doing is taking all these pieces made in very different ways, some custom, some generated, and trying to put them together to make a cohesive design. And that's the part of the process that it doesn't work without. And 3D and 2D artists have been working for years building up skills to do this specifically. So for me, it's a really great merge of techniques from the past, what we want to do in the future, leveraging the skills we already have as artists. So overall, if we look back at the whole project, I've used a handful of kitbash models and sort of worked on them at the same time. And then when I'm doing my personal model work on top, what I'm doing more than working on one piece for an extended period of time is taking that energy and working on 10 pieces at the same time and spending my modeling exercises figuring out how those pieces are going to work together to kind of tell the overall story. So I don't just have 1 week's really amazing face mask. I have a story about a robot where it takes a console to update it, and the head uses its own projectors as the monitor, and the disk fits in there. And it's just like, there's a lot of things going on that I normally would not get to spend time on because I'm enveloped in a very specific task. So there's room for both ways of working, and I found it very refreshing to work this way. And just overall, some maybe my personal thoughts. This is the first project I worked on where I really felt like I was trying hard with generative AI. And I really believe that every studio going forward is going to have access to a tool like Meshy or generative AI. It's just, it's going to become commonplace. And what we're going to see, I think, is 2D concepts and 3D finals coming together and the line between them blurring. And as artists, especially established production artists, I feel like it is our responsibility to figure out sort of the landscape of AI. And I think a huge part of that is partnering up with awesome companies like Meshy to try and help navigate the creative space. Thank you. I'll pass it back to you.